Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I thought I would do a simple project. I have a big weekend coming up with a big show in Loveland, Colorado. So if you happen to be in the area today, come by and say hi. But I thought I'd do, because I get asked about this so often, I thought I'd do another style of adjustable ring. So I picked out a pretty turquoise with kind of an abstract shape, and we'll make an adjustable ring out of it. So let's get started. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. This one has information about how to size rings correctly, a chart on the back with different sizes in millimeter, inches, stuff like that to figure out the shank length. There's other ones on my merch store as well that have different information about metalsmithing, like conversion charts or saw blade charts and things like that. So I find these notebooks super useful. I filled up like 5 of them now, I think, since I started the YouTube channel, but it's a nice place for me to keep track of my projects. So when I sketch something up, I have a permanent record of it, and I can go back and see it again if I need to do something similar without having to reinvent the wheel. So get yourself 1 or 2 of them. I think they're really nice to have around and a great way to keep a record. So today's project is going to be simple. I picked out this pretty turquoise here. It's kind of a weird shape. I suspect whoever was cutting it, maybe the corner broke off and they just rounded it out. It was probably meant to be a rectangle originally, but you never know. Maybe they were just making this based on the shape of the stone that they cut it out of. It is backed, which a lot of turquoise is, to reinforce it. And we're going to make a bezel setting out of 3/16" fine silver bezel strip, which in metric is 4.76 millimeters tall. It's going to be 26 gauge, which is 0.41 millimeters wide. And the bottom is going to be 26 gauge sterling instead of fine silver for the back of the bezel. This band we're going to make out of 8 gauge half round wire, sterling half round wire, and that is 3.25 millimeters wide. And that's really all the materials we're going to be needing. So the stone itself is about 20 by 9, so it's 20 this way, 9 millimeters this way. But the first thing we want to do is go ahead and make a bezel for it. If you're new to my channel, here's some information about my torch and my flux and my solder that I use and everything. So alright, let's find some bezel here. Okay. First, let's file the end flat here, make sure it's nice and square. If you have a miter vise jig, those are great for getting ends perfectly flat. You're welcome to use that if you want to. Whatever works best for you. Those are great for when you're having a bad filing day, of which I occasionally have. I'm actually pretty sore today. I had to go help set up some of the actual tents for the show, for the people running the show, because I'm part of the gallery that puts this one on. And so I set up like 12 or 14 tents yesterday. Alright, so let's make a curve to get it started like this. I like doing shows, but the older I get, the harder it becomes to set up and tear down and stuff like that. It's just, it's quite a bit of work. And being perky when I'm trying to sell stuff is not my natural state. But we'll do our best. So my friend John, who cuts stones, will be there as well. He's splitting the booth with me. Oh, he gave me a pretty stone the other day. Where is that? One of these days I'll make something out of it, but it's this really pretty cool shape of black fossilized coral from Indonesia. So I think it'll be fun to make something out of that one. Tell me what you think I ought to make out of that one in the comments, if you feel like it. Probably make a fun bracelet out of it too, but who knows? I usually make these into an angular shape when I'm soldering them. That way it's easier to get them pushing together nicely in a nice clean configuration. At least for me it is. If you're new to this, when you're making a bezel or similar stuff where you have two ends coming together, it's important to have them pushing together kind of tightly, because under the heat, when you start getting it up to the temperatures that it requires to be at for the solder to really stick to it, it starts to relax the work hardening of it, and so it can pull apart if they're just barely touching. So we'd like that not to pull apart before the solder flows, because solder doesn't like to jump gaps like that. So if you're new to this and you're having problems with that, try getting the ends of that to be pushing together a little harder before you start. And when you're doing an abstract shaped bezel, you want to make sure that you solder the bottom to the correct side, because I don't know how many times I've accidentally soldered it to the top, and then it's just the opposite shape of the stone because it's not symmetrical in all dimensions. So sometimes anymore I'll put a little mark on the bottom to make sure that I know that that's the bottom, like that. I do that sometimes, and then I still solder it to the top. Okay, let me find some 26 gauge sheet. We'll find a corner here where we can cut this off. It's cutting it a little close, but I think I can do it. I like to leave a little extra on the outside edges, so I'll just leave the extra over here. Reason being, it gives you a platform to pump some heat into that bottom sheet when you're soldering the two together, because the bezel being on top is pretty easy to get up to the soldering temperature, but the sheet on the bottom is a little more challenging because it's sort of protected by the bezel itself. Okay. Get this flux, and I probably have enough solder here to put on the inside. You don't want to make it crusty, and then after it gets crusty, you keep heating it until it kind of settles down. I get asked periodically why I don't put the solder in first and then flux it, which there's nothing wrong with doing that, except for the fact that when the flux goes through that kind of boily stage, where it gets all bubbly and kind of balloons upwards before it settles back down, it moves all the solder pieces around, and then they're not necessarily positioned where you want them to be when you're trying to get this to stick these two pieces together. So now when I'm heating this, I'm kind of trying to pump it right into the base there, because like I said, the bezel itself gets up to temperature very quickly, but the sheet underneath is harder to get to reach that temperature. Now you can put it across a little bridge of two things that are fireproof, like my friend Flying Chef in Hawaii does two little crucibles. You can tip it up a little bit, or after a while of doing this, you kind of get a feel for watching the metal to get it to flow without melting your bezel, which is a risk for beginners sometimes. I shouldn't say that. I still occasionally melt the bezel, but I'm not fully engaged with my piece. So I'm treating this kind of like a beginner project because I think it's kind of a beginner project. So that's not to say you couldn't add some embellishments to something like this to make it a little fancier, or do something, you know, fancier with the band. I'm just going to use some half round, but you could make something kind of ornate or whatever. Okay, it's important that you get it flush so it looks like a single piece of metal when you're done polishing and everything. But you want to make sure not to hit the top of the bezel when you're filing that off, because it gets really thin and fragile. So be a little careful about that. So one of the things that you have to deal with when you're doing something like this is a pretty simple ring, and we've got pretty thin sheet on the bottom, and you don't generally need super thick sheet on that because it's not usually a place where you have to deal with much flexing going on. With an adjustable ring like this, though, I don't want it attached just to the side of the bezel here, the band. Here's this 8-gauge half round. We could solder it like that, but that's going to be super flimsy because the bezel itself is fine silver and pretty thin. And so any kind of pressure on that is going to bend the bezel outwards and pull it away from the stone. So on this one, I'm actually going to file kind of a flat spot on top of the half round here, so that I can solder it right down in there, and it looks like it's kind of coming out of the side, but it's actually got a reinforcing amount of this on the bottom like that. And I think that'll serve to keep us from you know, causing problems with the stone setting. That's a way that I've dealt with that in the past. So let's mark about how far down we need to file the flat. Okay, so I'm just going to solder it like that. I'm going to try and get a little bit of solder on the side too, and then we'll remove any excess on this side here, and then we can shape this around the ring mandrel. So we'll see how it goes then. So let's solder that together, and then we'll be pretty close to being done. It's a real simple project, so I think it's a good one if you're sort of new to this. I'm gonna prop this up just a little bit this way so that it sits a little flatter. So I'm going to do what's called pick soldering. If you're interested in seeing a video about it, I have a pretty good one about it. It's one of those skills that really kind of moves you up to a different level because it allows you to place solder right where you want it to go. And it takes a little practice, but once you kind of get a feel for where to heat the metal and when, if I do it just right, where I get this piece up to the right temperature and this piece at the right temperature at about the same time, then I can just touch it there and it should just jump right on. So, I'm going to put a little bit on this side too, just to make sure we have complete penetration of that area. One way you can tell is I could see the inner seam of the previous solder joint getting a little liquid. That's a good way to tell. So it looks like we have a good seam. So that should prevent the bezel from getting too warped by doing this. But one thing I do want to do is. I have this mandrel that has kind of a flattish side on it, like that. So for things like this, sometimes it makes it easier to bend this around without distorting things. Just so you can get kind of an idea what it's going to look like when it's all cleaned up. It'll be kind of like that. So, or I suppose you could wear it this way if you wanted to. We'll have to see which way is more comfortable. But I'll get that pickled and then we'll come back and set the stone. So I got everything kind of polished up and I filed the bezel down a little bit. I do usually put a little bit of compressed cardboard behind it because it has just a little bit of give to it, but it holds together over years and years as a backing. So I have this about where I wanted it to be, and I think I'm ready to set this. So I do this a little differently than some. I use the flat side of my chain nose pliers as a bezel pusher, and then we'll use the rounded outer part here as a burnishing tool. So. Oops. A lot of people have trouble holding this like this and setting the stone. It helps when you're new, especially, to use either a ring vise or something like that to kind of hold things in place. It's just a little easier to hold on to for a lot of people. So even though I'm just holding it in two hands, if you have a way to secure it, it's sometimes a better outcome if you're new. Yeah, this is called burnishing. I'm just kind of rubbing the top edge where it meets the stone. The last thing I sometimes do is I'll use a fine blue silicone polishing wheel on a rotary tool just on the top of the bezel to kind of clean it up. But make sure this is, I want to make sure this is still round after polishing. I kind of bent it open a couple of times while I was polishing. And so there we go. That's probably how someone would wear it, I would think. So let's see how I did as far as my drawing. That's pretty much what I had in mind. And again, these are adjustable, so if you have trouble with your knuckles or whatever, these can open up a little bit and close up, just because they're open-ended like that. So I'm curious to hear what you think. Tell me how you would have done it, or if you do things differently when you're doing adjustable rings. So let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, well, that was a turquoise adjustable ring in a different style. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. That really helps to get my channel promoted, and I really appreciate it. There's also some other features on YouTube, like hyping the video. That helps as well. And visit my main channel page. I'd love to have you check out some of my other content. I have 660 plus videos over there now. I do 3 per week, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, and one on Saturday. When you view this one on Saturday, if you see it the first day, I will, like I said, I'll be in Art in the Park, which is in Loveland, Colorado, and so it's a nice show with lots of pretty stuff. So come by and say hi if you're in the area, and make sure to subscribe to my channel. There's no cost to that, and it makes it much easier to find my content. I wanted to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. I have a brand new one, Misty K. Thank you for signing up. I think you'll find, as I have, that's a marvelous group of people over there who are very friendly and are willing to share what knowledge they have with everybody else. So it's a nice artistic community over there, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. So thank you to all of my patrons for making it that way and for your financial support. The other group are my YouTube subscribers. Thank you to them for helping us to reach 29,500 subscribers, which is amazing to me. I love the comment section on YouTube. I get such nice comments from people, and I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with me as well. If nothing else, I want my channel to be a place where people can learn things, and I learn things from you, and I suspect other people reading the comments learn other useful information from you as well. So thanks for contributing to that. Thank you also for the kind contributions, the buy me a coffees, the super thanks, the purchases of my merch on my merch store, my ebook purchases. All of that stuff makes my channel sustainable, and I could not do this without your help, so thank you for that. The video description down below has some important information in it. You can visit my Patreon through the link there, and if you want to find out more about that particular community. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks I talked about at the beginning. Or some other merch. There's lots of cool stuff on there, t-shirts and mugs and magnets and things like that. Finally, there's a link to my newest ebook, which is a guide to 2025's tutorials, of which there were over 170. So in that, you'll find a link to each of the videos on each video's page, as well as some additional information like a picture of the sketch, a picture of the final outcome, a list of materials, difficulty rating, stone information, notes that I took about the project, about things that I thought about after the fact. Did I like it? Did I learn something? Would I do it differently? All of that kind of stuff. So it's a really nice way to have a bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a super thoughtful way to support my channel. So get yourself one of those, or even better, get yourself all three of them that I've done so far, 2023, 2024, and 2025. If you look on the merch store, there's a link to get all three of them together for a discount. So it's not on my website. Somebody else tried to find it on my website. It's actually on my merch store, which is affiliated with the YouTube channel. So check it out over there. And thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.